Today, we're diving into a story that honestly feels more like a spy novel than a tech headline. It's all about a massive, decade-long cyber espionage campaign that didn't just steal a few secrets. No, it completely rewrote the rules of modern cyber warfare. This is the story of Operation Shady Rat. So picture this. It's December 2012. In his basement, a cybersecurity researcher named Kyle Wilhote is building a water plant. It's got everything: control systems, complex equipment, even a professional-looking website. But here's the catch. It's all fake. It's a digital ghost, a trap built for one single purpose: to be bait. He connects it to the open internet, and then he waits.
You see, this whole setup was what we call a honeypot. It's a clever trap designed to see who might be poking around our critical infrastructure. And what it caught? Well, it was more shocking than anyone could have possibly expected. Almost immediately, the trap was swarming. I mean, you had Russian ransomware gangs, North Korean military hackers, even just trolls from all over the world trying to break in, all looking for a good time or a quick buck. But in all of that chaos, one intruder was different.
A bunch of really well-researched phishing emails started hitting the plant's virtual inbox. They looked totally legit, with really convincing attachments. Of course, one of those attachments was loaded with malware. But this attacker wasn't trying to cause damage or shut things down. No, they were systematically scraping every single piece of technical documentation the plant had.
And here's the truly incredible part. The attacker didn't even bother to hide their tracks. All that stolen data was being beamed straight to a command and control server located in China. Kyle Wilhote was probably floored. He realized he had just caught a member of APT-1, the almost mythical hacking group behind Operation Shady Rat. But to really get why this was such a massive deal, we need to jump in a time machine and go back to 2006. This is when the operation really got going. And these guys, they weren't your typical smash-and-grab hackers. This was something totally new and way, way more patient. You know, the early attacks were almost comically crude. The targets were big companies with, well, let's just say by today's standards, their cybersecurity was laughable. We are talking about hackers sending malicious screensavers and emails and people actually opening them. It sounds completely absurd now, but back then, it worked like a charm.
So this brand new type of slow, stealthy attack needed a name. And that's how the term Advanced Persistent Threat, or APT, was born. It was created specifically to describe this new kind of enemy who wasn't just breaking in, they were moving in for good.
And their playbook was incredibly methodical. It would all start with a simple phishing email that installed something called a Remote Access Trojan, or a RAT. But instead of a quick in and out, they would just hang around, quietly moving from one computer to the next, building a secret network inside their victim's own system. They called it a rat cave, a place to just quietly suck out data over time.
And when I say persistent, I really mean it. The shortest time they were known to be inside a network was about a month. The longest, almost 5 years. Just try to imagine that. An enemy inside your network, totally undetected, watching everything you do for half a decade. For years, all these hacks just looked like a bunch of random, separate events. But slowly, cybersecurity firms started putting the puzzle pieces together, and the mask finally started to slip. So the first huge break came in 2011. Researchers at McAfee did something wild. They hacked the hackers. They got into one of their servers and found logs that tied dozens of attacks all back to the same source. That's when they gave the campaign its name, Operation Shady Rat. Then, in 2013, the cybersecurity firm Mandiant landed the final blow, tracing the whole operation directly to a specific unit of the Chinese military.
And we learned exactly who they were. Unit 61398 of the People's Liberation Army, working out of a huge 12-story building just outside Shanghai. And listen, this wasn't some small-time crew. We're talking hundreds of operators whose official mission was military reconnaissance and, you guessed it, large-scale intellectual property theft.
But what's absolutely mind-blowing is that for a state-sponsored military unit, they were just sloppy. Why? Because they simply didn't care. They were so brazen, they were just FTPing stolen files back to China with no encryption at all. Get this, some former employees would even list their hacking work on their resumes. Seriously.
So, you have to wonder, why would a military unit be so blatant and so focused on stealing corporate secrets? Well, the answer comes down to the operation's ultimate goal, a massive, state-directed heist of intellectual property.
Their mission was brutally efficient. If you go back and look at China's public 5-year economic plans from that time, the industries they wanted to grow line up almost perfectly with the list of Shady Rat's victims. The strategy was crystal clear. Why spend billions on R&D when you can just steal it and make it better? This wasn't just hacking, it was economic policy by other means.
And if you want the most jaw-dropping example, look no further than the F-35 fighter jet. Back in 2007, hackers built a rat cave deep inside the servers of the defense giant Lockheed Martin. They stole the complete plans for what was then the world's most advanced stealth fighter. A few years later, China unveiled its own stealth fighter, the Shenyang FC-31. And what do you know? It looked remarkably familiar.
Now, of course there were official denials, but the theft was finally confirmed, without a shadow of a doubt, by the documents leaked by Edward Snowden in 2015. The blueprints for the planet's most sophisticated weapon weren't stolen by a secret agent rappelling from a ceiling. Nope, they were stolen by someone sending a couple of clever emails.
And you better believe this campaign had a profound economic impact. This massive forced transfer of technology helped fuel an absolute fire of economic growth, with the mainland Chinese economy expanding by around 400% during this time.
But don't think the story ends there, because after they were publicly exposed, the hackers didn't just disappear. They evolved, and the threat they posed became something way more insidious.
That public shaming, it worked, just not in the way you'd hope. The loud, clumsy, noisy attacks stopped. The hackers started getting smarter, using redirectors and hopping through servers in other countries to hide their tracks. They went quiet, they went stealthy, and they became a lot harder to pin down.
And their mission changed too. This is the really chilling part. It was no longer just about stealing intellectual property. The new goal was to quietly maintain permanent access to the very systems that run our society, our power grids, our water plants, our transportation networks.
Officials at the U.S. cybersecurity agency CISA use this really powerful analogy to explain the difference. They say Russia's cyber strategy is like a hurricane. It's loud, it's disruptive, and you see the damage immediately. China's strategy, on the other hand, is like climate change. It's slow, it's quiet, and over the long term, it fundamentally reshapes the entire environment.
And that brings us to today. Because those rat caves, that persistent access into our most critical infrastructure, they're still there. The same hackers who used to steal blueprints are now sitting with their hands on the switches. So the question is no longer about theft. The question is, what happens when that access is used for something far more disruptive? And for that, we just don't have an answer yet.